Hi, so today I'm going to take you through the process of creating this lovely illustration. I made this in Procreate with an Apple Pencil and a lot of back pain. So the first thing that I will have is my reference photo, and this was an art trade with Ashley, so I used her art as a reference to come up with this small thumbnail. And this didn't take more than 5 minutes. I will usually experiment a lot with poses, especially when there's two characters in the artwork or the illustration. And here it was so simple. I just stuck with the first sketch that I had. I didn't have to experiment anymore or try complex poses or backgrounds or compositions or anything like that. And then I blew it up. And I used the symmetry tool since this is a forward-facing art, and this will help with my eyes. I am pretty good at symmetry on my own, but this just makes it go a lot faster. I'll usually just use this for the eyes and the nose, and in this one in particular, there's a lot of piercings, as you can see, and I did end up using it for the glasses, which come in a little bit later. And then I have another layer, and I will do everything that I want asymmetrical on this layer. It's usually multiple, and then I merge it all together. And here there's the eyes. Oh, the face shape is also something that I use with symmetry just to get the job done faster and more efficiently. And then the piercings, there were a lot of asymmetrical piercings, and I knew I wanted some sort of smirk. Like, the original character design was absolutely stunning. I mean, doing the hair, I just love the element of having straight hair, but then doing these edges in and the little curls. It just adds so much of interest to the portrait, and it leads the eye towards the eyes of the portrait. So that was just absolutely stunning on Ashley's part. And the accessories, I am famously bad at doing accessories because when it comes to my characters, I always just take inspiration from the story, that the novel that I'm writing for it, and I just add crystals and do it in that way, and I'm used to a more medieval style. But then when it comes to a more modern take on portraits and things like that, I just cannot with accessories. It's so funny because it's one of the best parts of drawing for me. But this one in particular was really inspired by all of the handmade jewelry that I've been seeing on Instagram, and it's just stunning. I mean, this style you can probably tell from there. And the way that I did it very, very easily is by just blocking it in and then erasing to make an outline. And I'm doing the same thing with the glasses. So I'm blocking in a very, very thick line, and then I'm taking an erase tool, making it slightly thinner than it needs to be. And because this brush is pressure sensitive, it was really easy because I had a very good handle over the thickness and thinness of the lines. And the texture of the brush, I just love this texture so much, and to think that this is a built-in Procreate brush is insane. It brought so much of character to the sketch, and when you turn the brush sideways, you can actually, it's like using an actual pencil. You turn your pencil to the side, you get thicker lines, and when you use the tip, it's a very thin, very controlled line. I just love this brush so much. I had so much of control over it that I could actually draw the tattoo and things like that. The tattoo was very, very detailed. I even added Dear Ashley, and then I wrote a little note, but then you can't really see it that much in the final artwork, but it's okay. So I also wanted to add this. This was inspired by Demon Slayer, that final charm. It was, I think, Tengen's was it Tengen? No. It was the weapon that Gyome uses, and I just love that weapon so much. Actually, all the swords in Demon Slayer were just so well designed. So you'll probably see little snippets of that pop up in my illustrations from any kind of media that I like. When it comes to details, I just pull from anything and I add those details in. I don't know why nobody ever sees it or notices it because Instagram completely ruins the quality. So when it comes to colors, I use the lasso tool and I just go around the entire thing and I fill it with color. That's it. This is a little off topic, but I got this really cute moment between me and my nephew coming up.
Am I distracting you?
No, my darling. I like when you talk to me. It's nice. That's the reason why I have so many cuts and jumps in this video, because I kept pausing and speaking to him. So back to the art, I usually, the larger shapes, I will use the lasso tool, and then for the smaller shapes, because I also like the texture of the brush, I'll go in with the same brush that I use for the outline, and I'll color it in manually. And it does take a while, but you know what? It's very therapeutic. I'll be honest, I hate coloring. Coloring books are just not my thing. But then when it comes to coloring my own art, I don't know, it's relaxing. There's no thinking behind it and stress about it, so I appreciate the process. Can't say much about picking colors, but I do know when I go for a darker color, I usually make it more saturated and warmer. And when I go for a highlight, I make it cooler and less saturated. Sometimes when I'm coloring the hair, especially with actually just with black hair, I will go with a bluer tone rather than making it less saturated, just because it adds more intrigue. But then for this, I knew by the end I was going to change the colors a lot and edit it once I was completely done with rendering. So I didn't end up doing that. I just ended up going with a gray. I really liked the camera angles here. It's to show you like what I'm doing on my screen and then what I'm doing in real life with my pencil. I think it's very helpful to get a visual on both, but the in real life video was very shaky and I kept moving my hand. I'm filming this with one hand and drawing with the other. So yeah, it was just a lot to concentrate on, plus, you know, doing good art. I'm using the tip and the barrel because with hair, you know, I like to get bigger strokes for the clumps of hair and then smaller parts for just the strands. But this one here, I usually add in a couple stray strands and things like that, but the lighting wasn't that dramatic here. It was just a front view, faced right, very straightforward. And now the worst part, skin. I hate coloring skin, rendering skin. It's literally the bane of my existence. I cannot with this. It takes so long. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do the basics and just leave it at that. And since I started with this style, I started with this style just not very long ago. And it was just so much easier than my usual very, very detailed style. And it got the job done. And I realized, hey, taking a couple months away from art really did help me improve, because now I know the main points of interest when it came to rendering skin, and then I can just add it in. So I start with my blush first, obviously, and I never ever skip that step. And when you are kind of blending the blush in, it gets more subtle. So I don't mind going in really, really dark to start. And then I have a textured brush usually, and I do the erasing because with textured brushes, when you are blending, it takes away all of the texture. It's really frustrating, and I wish there were more brushes that did not do that. But while I'm experimenting with making brushes, I have to deal with that issue. And the way around it is to just use the erase tool. I can save so much of my textures by just going in and erasing after I have blended everything, which is another reason I like to go very, very dark with the blush and things like that, and even shadows and stuff. And then afterwards, I'll just erase, and it adds a whole lot of texture on. Rendering is the longest part of the process, but I actually did very, very well this time because I did that technique where I did not overdo it with details. I made a bit of a joke about this and made it into a reel as a reformed over-renderer. Finishing the artwork at 2 hours in is heaven, and truly, truly it is. It's more than a joke, because I used to spend, oh my word, I think about 5 hours went on a process that I did not like. I was just waiting to get into the end and to play with colors and lighting and final details and things like that. I hated rendering. But this time, this entire artwork took 2 hours and 40 minutes. 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's insane for me. Even though it's just a portrait, I have been finishing artworks a lot faster. I don't know whether that's due to skill or whether it's due to me just not caring about details anymore and being so sick and tired of rendering for hours and hours and hours, and then you go to post or you put it in your portfolio, nobody even notices. The amount of commissions that I had done where people don't. Sometimes I will complete a commission and then I will point out details, and then the customer will be like, "What? That's amazing. That's insane. How did you do that?" And I'm there like, "Ugh, I'm never doing this again." And then I go and I do it again because I enjoy adding details. So I was done with my rendering and I went in to check the values, and perhaps a better artist would have seen something wrong with these values, but I really, really liked how it turned out. So I went into rendering the necklace and I did not enjoy that process one bit. I wanted it to look like glass beads, like handmade glass beads, but I didn't end up. Ugh, I don't even want to speak about it. Okay, I was not happy with how the beads turned out, but I selected all of my layers, I put it in another group, and then I duplicated that group, flattened it, and I was ready to start my favorite stage, which is adding colors and details. This part, so I'll go in with a very subtle gradient map, and then I'll go to color and curves, and I'll change the contrast, and then the reds, greens, blues, all of that. And then I'll go into sharpen, and after sharpen I'll add noise, but this time I also added a little bit, very, very subtle amount of bloom. When I was not happy with the composition, I wanted it more centered, so I did that, and then I edited the sleeve. And then when I was done with that, I went in with another texture brush, which is just a couple of lines, and I made texture just. I went crazy with the texture, to be honest. I had so much of fun with this. It took about 5 minutes to do, but it made the biggest difference. I'm adding it wherever there is a change of color, especially with the harsh nose shadow, and then I really enjoyed adding it to the eyeshadow, which was very fun, and then I even broke some lines using that, and just I don't know, I really loved it. I even did it outside and on the background. I added it everywhere and it was stunning. At the end, I think this is what really brought the illustration from like a 7 to a 10. I can't believe that I created this. It's been a very long time since I actually looked at my art and I really enjoyed my art. I can usually see a lot of issues and still think that, wow, this thing is a 10 out of 10, even though I see those issues. It's not the best art in the entire world, but I created this, and that's how I want to feel with all of my illustrations. So, yeah. I hope this was helpful. It was more for an intermediate set of artists. I know a lot of these terms you probably won't know if you're a complete beginner and have never picked up digital art in your entire life. But if you would like a tutorial like that, I can completely do it. And otherwise, thank you for staying until the end, and I'll see you again next time.